Live from the 607, it is the Ocho Duro Parlay Hour, where we're talking sports locally and nationally. Why don't you join in the conversation with the hashtag ODPH? Here we go. Welcome to another edition of the Ocho Duro Parlay Hour, hashtag ODPH podcast. I am your host, Ken M. Sitting across from me this week is the one, the only, Padawan J.
Hello, hello, hello.
And also joining us in studio, it's your coach, my coach, the coach, Coach Duffy.
What is going on? It was a rough week for my bracket, guys.
I think that's true for the entire country. And if you are one of the few who still has a Final Four, if not championship game intact, what are your secrets?
So many sports to talk about. Let's waste no more time. Hit us up on that hashtag ODPH. Biggest sports story in the news, though, has to be March Madness and the downfall of Duke.
Let's say if you listen closely, you can still hear people shredding their brackets in the shredders in their homes and offices, or lighting them on fire. One of the two.
Absolutely. We now have our Final Four teams in place, but no bigger game of the weekend had to be Michigan State versus Duke. Coach, your thoughts?
I got an unpopular opinion here, but I'm going to hit you guys with it. I think Coach K has kind of taken a step back and regressed a little bit as far as a coaching standpoint. I think the game has passed him by.
You know, I don't feel that personally. I don't. But you have to look at how much talent was on that team and the fact that, yet again, Duke did not make it to the Final Four and out in the regional final again. You know, there's a lot of question marks going right now. A lot of them.
Let me tell you the biggest thing why I think that has happened. They had four of the possibly greatest potential NBA, recruits in the last 10 years since, Cal had that John Wall, DeMarcus Cousins class, and still lost this game to Michigan in a game where Izzo outcoached Coach K. Duke's biggest problem all year has been their ability to hit three-point shots. And in today's day and age, you have to be able to shoot the three. And Coach K continues to have his players in an offensive system that does not lend itself to getting wide-open threes, but instead lends to getting shots inside of the paint. I've got stats to prove it right now.
Well, just to interject for a moment, looking back, I know I noticed it, but I didn't think anything of it at the time because I'm like, oh, there's a whole other half to go. Duke will work their way out of it. I think looking back on it, Duke was very much in trouble where you look at they're going into halftime, and Zion Williamson, one of their biggest players on the court, had 7 points? Something less than that maybe?
Give, take.
So, this is the telling stat here. They were 69th in the country in attempted three-point shots. 69th. A team that can run and gun the way that they do, they finished 69th in three-point attempts. They shot in the bottom 330 in field goal percentage from three. Bottom third for field goal percentage from three. You can't win with that.
You can't.
But field goal-wise, so this is 2 points and three throws, they were 47.7% from field goal range. From field goal. Field goal percentage. So they were an efficient team at scoring, but the problem is, and analytically, if you want to look at the stat breakdown that way, if you are that kind of guy, 3 versus 2, 3 is always going to be more than 2. And when you're only shooting and making 2-point buckets, and especially when they're inefficient shots, like maybe a foot inside the 3-point line, 2 feet inside the three-point line, your foot on the line, those shots there are what can make or break a game. And especially when you talk about the fact that they held their opponents to 29.8% from three-point range. So they were able to stop teams defensively. This was a good defensive team. It's just their problem was their inability to make three-point baskets.
Yeah, it came back to haunt them at the worst time. And, like I said, Michigan State was rolling with it, and Goins hitting that, clutch shot at the end there. That was just the tipping point. And for Duke, it's just puzzling because of just the talent they had. Have they ever had a talented player as well as they had with Zion Williamson?
Not since Grant Hill.
I say not since Grant Hill. It's debatable. It really is. But it was just kind of just puzzling to see that they shot so poorly.
Well, here's my other problem too with this. You have Zion Williamson, arguably one of the biggest and strongest players in all of college basketball, who can out-rebound anybody. Anybody in college basketball right now. You have RJ Barrett, who is about a 6'7", 6'8"-ish guy. You have Cam Reddish, who's also 6'6", 6'7", and Trey Jones. But then on the bench, you also have guys who, obviously White did not play well this tourney.
No.
Alex O'Connell had his ups and downs. But the biggest problem is, why not stretch the floor and have Zion run the 5 a little bit? But continue to put Aguilar and his name's escaping me right now, but the other center that Duke has, and I'm sorry that your name is escaping me, but having him, running the 5s instead of having Zion go and play, the stretch 5 and RJ Barrett play a stretch 4, which would help stretch the floor. I mean, that's just old school basketball. That's not lending yourself to the trends and styles of today, which was, running out and getting on the fast break. And, putting O'Connell in, somebody who could shoot. That's the other problem with this team. Is they didn't have anybody who could space the floor. You look at the trends and lens of the NBA or college. You look at a team like the 76ers, who's built, arguably similar to what Duke is, with having a traditional 5 in Joel Embiid, having a 4 with Ben Simmons, Jimmy Butler. But who do they put on the floor with them? A J.J. Redick, who can shoot and spread the floor. And I think, or Tobias Harris now plays the 4 and Ben Simmons plays the 1, but they have J.J. Redick out there to help space the floor. That's what this team needed. That's what this team was desperate for, was a guy who could go out there and consistently shoot the 3, and Cam Reddish was supposed to be that.
Yeah, and he definitely did not have a good tournament showing that.
He had, ever since that North Carolina game in the ACC championship, I haven't seen a guy that's fallen down the draft boards as bad as Cam Reddish has.
Mm-hmm. I'll say the other thing they need, and the exact name of what this stat was on SportsCenter the day after the game escapes me, but SportsCenter had a graphic on where it was like the 4 or 5 Duke starters, and their shot to, made shots to shots taken percentage in the last 3 minutes of the game or something. Not a one of them hit a shot. Zion was 0 for 1. There was another one was 0 for 3, 0 for 5. None of them hit a shot in the final 3 minutes.
Oh, well, that's because Michigan State's pack. Watch the breakdown of that tape. Michigan State had all 5 guys in the paint. That shot that RJ Barrett took to try and, seal the game, there's 3 guys inside the paint, not even covering the 3-point shooters. Trey Jones, while had a great game the game before, was not here today.
No, definitely not. This came back to haunt him in the worst way because, Michigan State battled him the entire way. And, you can kind of make the debate of Michigan State has played together. They know their roles on the court. And
sure, you don't want to take anything away from them, but at the end of the day,
no. Duke was the heavy favorite. Everybody knew looking at this roster and the potential for NBA superstars that came through this team. To see them go cold when they needed to be so on fire at the end there, that was the true shock point of the game. Because you'd see Michigan State went on the 11-0 run there at one point, and then Duke would chip away, and then they go on another 7-0 run. It's when they do that, that's when you really thought, okay, this is going to come down to the final shot. And where Duke had lived and died by it, and you can go back throughout the tournament, it was when you get these one last possession games, and when that shot doesn't fall, this is where it comes back to haunt them. And this is where they shouldn't have been in that situation the entire game.
Well, this is also another 101 in me saying that it's just, the game might be passing Coach K by. And I don't mean any disrespect by this. Let's just get that out right now. This is just my personal opinion from a game and a tournament that I watched. Why is RJ Barrett with the ball at the end of the game?
Yeah, that was a little questionable, especially how much he was struggling.
Let's just talk about the fact that the guy's a 63% free throw shooter to begin with. Same statistically as Zion.
Yeah.
Why are you not giving the ball to Zion to drive on anybody, or at least have him post up for a double and a kick out?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. That's what I should have done. Or if I was coaching, that's what I would have said. Get it to your Zion, because Zion was playing very consistent with. Barrett went through his ups and downs in that game. He still did put up 21 points though. So it's not to say that he was ice cold, but it was at the end, you give it to Zion. Zion would take over. And
UCF, he won that game.
Yeah, without question.
So why not do the same thing here?
Fully agree on that.
So you've seen it before in games that not only at the collegiate level, but at the NBA level, where, your shooters might not be shooting the best, but you feed it to a big guy down low who is just going to dunk all over every man, woman, and child that is defending the rim, they're going to win.
Yeah, I mean, by God, the guy in the post is an absolute animal. I mean, he had a post up earlier in the game that yielded to an easy dunk. Now, mind you, obviously Michigan State started to pack in the paint, and it really changed the game in the second half once Michigan State really, let Duke, invited them to shoot the three. But at the end of the day, I think you need to you got to go with whatever will work, and Zion on that right side block is what works.
Yeah, Zion should have just taken over the game. You should have just said, "Here you go," and finish it. He's that kind of guy, the killer's kill mentality.
But the problem is that they ran the same offense that they always do, and he didn't lend it to the styles that fit this team and what they had on the court, because with what you have with Trey Jones is you don't necessarily have the greatest 3-point shooting point guard that you've had throughout your career, with Paulus, and you had Seth Curry. You've had, traditionally at Duke, you had a guy that can shoot the three at the point. Well, that wasn't this team. So you have to change the offensive style, and they didn't do that at all. And they continue to run the same sets that they've ran throughout the history at Duke. And I mean, part of that is, Coach K is an older coach who, is kind of in his ways and wanted to mend the team to what he predicted, or what he wants. But you can't do that with these kind of level of superstar players. I mean, you look at what he did when he was with Team USA and how he fit and molded that team into an image that could win, the Olympic gold, with Kobe being a defensive stopper and the go-to scorer on offense. Not the primary scorer, the go-to scorer. That's something that really needed to be with his team. And they ran sets that put them in positions to get there. And when you don't have guys that can shoot and stretch the floor, you have to kind of be a post-based team, and that's not what they tried to be. They still tried to be a perimeter-based team, and it just didn't work.
Yeah, it's just something that was just puzzling, and especially with the talent they had, and just you figure they'd make enough game adjustments that they'd be able to accommodate that. And it just didn't happen. I mean, and like we say, take nothing away from Coach Izzo and the job he did with Michigan State, because they adapted enough and they bended it, but they didn't break. They went through their struggles, and at the end, I mean, like I said, they held on to win. I mean, that 68-67 game, yeah, close game, but man, it was very, very telling about it.
It's like we said. It's like we said before. They may go through the regular season not exactly the flashiest or making the biggest splash in terms of news in the college basketball world, but come tournament time, it's Coach Izzo, and he's going to absolutely get his guys to step up to that next level.
Well, it's just that team has played so long together. I mean, they know each other inside and out. So that translates a lot, because especially we're living the era of the ones and dones right now.
Right.
That it's tough to really build that team camaraderie. And on Izzo's team, they had some seniors. They had some guys that have been there and know the system and know exactly how to win. And just when they get in that mentality of tournament time, they show up. I mean, it doesn't matter who they're facing. They always show up.
Well, let's not take away, too, the fact that the team was able to rally around Coach Izzo, especially with all the controversy regarding Screamgate. That really, you could feel it. Probably changed the mentality in the locker room, and then it became an us versus them situation, or us versus the world. And any team that's riding that, has that, just that extra oomph to carry themselves into this, especially going into a big game like it was against Duke. And I mean, now with Duke, obviously all four guys are leaving. I love the Bleacher Report April Fool's joke with Zion being so upset about not winning the national championship that he's coming back. The guy's got 13 shoe companies already trying to pursue him. Team USA, the tournament team that has to qualify through FIBA, is already knocking at his door. So he's leaving, guys. Duke now next year has a real question mark, because recruiting-wise, they have not landed, except for one guy, anybody in the top 10.
It's going to be an interesting offseason for both, for Duke and Zion, because Zion, obviously, heavily rumored, going to be a New York Knick, but he's going to be going to the NBA draft, going to the Knicks. And with that being said, though, it's just he's going to have a lot of stuff going on that his legacy at Duke, I mean, he left a lasting impression. And for Duke, like you said, it's going to be very puzzling what happens now. I still think they're going to contend. I mean, obviously, they're Duke, and they have recruited well, but are they going to have a superstar class like this for a while? Arguably, no.
I mean, not right now, because like I said, they only have one in the top 10 signed. And I mean, the other top four are unsigned, but don't have Duke in their bottom, their top four that aren't signed yet. So that's pretty telling that, they were able to get all these guys to commit at one time. Obviously, RJ Barrett reclassified to join this group to try and make a run. And, at the end of the day, when you talk about the senior leadership versus freshman run, the senior leadership again won out.
Absolutely. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. But Michigan State moves on from the East. In the Midwest, Auburn defeated Kentucky 77-71. Thoughts on this game?
Crazy. Auburn just out of nowhere. I mean, everybody thought once, it was Kentucky and Auburn, thought, Kentucky's going to be the team that's going to make this run. Coach Calipari's got seniors. This is wild,
Yeah.
But Bruce Pearl, man, what a job he's done in Auburn.
Don't sleep on him, man. He has turned that program around.
Absolutely.
And just the heart they showed. Just all heart in that game.
I mean, their best player, OKG, goes down to a season-ending injury. Now they're all rallying around each other to try and win, and Bruce Pearl is the one right at the forefront, man. It's been tremendous because Auburn's such a football school that had been so bad at basketball.
Mm-hmm.
So bad. Not even bad. Really bad. Like, to the point where it was like they were 2-16 in a conference.
Yeah.
And he's turned them around in 2 years.
Yeah, he's just gone in there, and he's just changed that culture. We always talk about it with Baker Mayfield in Cleveland, and I know we're switching sports, but when you get somebody in there that can change the culture there and just turn that mentality around, look at the results.
Yeah.
He's just come in and just to take out Kentucky, which is no easy feat by any means. They are a college basketball powerhouse.
Yeah.
Let's not take anything away from that. To go in there, and obviously they hung in there, they won in overtime. It was a wild game. But like you said, they're just rallying around their fallen player, and Pearl's got them going the right direction. And where they go from here, obviously they got 2 more games to go if they're going to bring home that chip. But,
that would be wild.
But I'm saying it's possible.
Yeah.
It's really possible because, they're going to be facing Virginia next round, and Virginia finished Purdue 80-75, which Purdue I thought was going to pull that one off. I really did.
I didn't think Virginia had enough firepower to keep up with Purdue because Klein was on fire.
Yeah, he was shooting the lights out of the place. And, kudos to them. Virginia, they had arguably one of the rougher starts of this tournament.
It's in their track record.
Yeah, it's in their track record, but just to see them, really hunker down and just really get focused and just play their style of basketball and just to really hang in because, Purdue was definitely game for them.
You said it was 80-75?
Correct, in overtime.
And if I told you that a Virginia game went to 80 points,
I said get out of here.
You would think Virginia lost.
Yeah.
Because no way they're scoring 80. So for them to be able to flip the switch and score some offense definitely makes me, if I was Auburn, definitely a little wide-eyed.
Yeah, exactly, and especially in how they won, too, on that last minute shot.
Out of nowhere.
I was trying to think of an adjective to describe it, but it's just, the last glimmer of hope.
Probably one of the most wild plays that you'll ever see in a college basketball. Even outside Princeton, sprinting down court for that wide open layup to win as a 12 seed, this was probably the craziest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, but kudos to them. They're moving on, and the last team to join the party, Texas Tech over Gonzaga, 75-69. What can you say about this one?
Just think about the fact that if I said to you, name one conference that's going to have 2 teams in the Final Four, who would you have named?
ACC.
And if I would have said it was the SEC, you would have?
I would have said we're not playing football. That would legitimately have been my answer. No, just to see how this is going down, this is wild. Gonzaga, we've talked about it on the show, and I'm not rooting against them, and I hope it's not coming off that way. But just some reason, they just can't get it done. I don't understand.
Yeah, I saw something really funny on Twitter that they were talking about Gonzaga and their run, and it was leading to the fact that Gonzaga always is great at breaking hearts after the 8 or something like that. And it was very funny because they do. For years Gonzaga has had a perennial powerhouse, and this is going to be Gonzaga's year to make it to the finals. This is the year, and then stumble after Elite 8 weekend.
Yeah, it's just wild to see. And like I said, I'm not rooting against them. Texas Tech, I think of all the teams, you can argue them and Auburn. The biggest Cinderella stories of this dance.
Yeah, Cinderella for sure. Who would have said, like I just said, 2 SEC teams would be the ones in the Final Four
For basketball.
Yeah. And it'd be Texas Tech and Auburn.
Yeah, this is just mind-blowing, but this is the beauty of the tourney. Because anything can happen on a given night.
Yeah, if I would have said Tennessee and Kentucky, you'd be like, all right.
Yeah, I can see that.
I can see that.
Yeah,
but no, we're talking Texas Tech and Auburn.
In basketball. Yeah, just absolutely crazy. But congratulations to everybody who got to the dance. But now we're talking Final Four, Final Two, and overall winner. So let's kick it off with you, Pat. Michigan State versus Texas Tech. Who you got?
Oh, man, this is literally a coin flip just because I got to admit I'm not too familiar with either team, but I think you got to go with the hot hand. I think, the clock hadn't exactly struck midnight yet, so I think I got to go with Texas Tech.
I always go against the Big Ten. I always lose. So let's just let it ride. Texas Tech, because Michigan State's a Big Ten, and I hate the Big Ten, and I'm always wrong. Go Texas Tech.
I'm taking Michigan State. Coach Izzo. He's got those guys ready.
Coach Izzo.
You know me. I go with the coach in this one. Not you, coach, but the other coach.
Yeah.
But flipping the other side of the bracket, you got Virginia versus Auburn. Coach, who you got in that one?
Well, luckily it's not a Big Ten team, so I can pick either one. ACC by blood. I feel icky picking Virginia, but I think their defense and now the fact that they found an offense is going to be stifling. So I'm going to go Virginia.
Pat, who you got in this one?
Man, I'm just going to have to go with Auburn. I think they're playing stellar. Just Virginia, sorry, clock's hit midnight on you.
I'm going with Auburn on this one. I can't go for Virginia. I just think Auburn's playing. It's that whole rallying point that they're just playing so well right now. This is going to be a close one. I see this being in the 60s, and I see this being another last possession shot. That's how this is going to finish. But I see this is going to be Auburn and Michigan State. And as much as I love Auburn right now, Coach Izzo's bringing home that chip, in my opinion.
How crazy would it be if it it would flip college basketball on its head if the national championship game is Texas Tech versus Auburn?
It would be wild. Wild is not even a good way to describe it.
It would literally flip, because nobody's talking about that right now.
No.
It would literally flip college basketball on its head.
Yeah, that's absolutely crazy to see. But so who you got for your final two then?
All right, so I got Virginia and Texas Tech, and I'm going to lean Virginia just because of the fact that Virginia, I think, has the best defense left. And I always tend to lean towards defense when it comes to championship time. So I'm going to go Virginia over Texas Tech.
Pat, how about you?
I've got Auburn versus Texas Tech in the final two. Auburn. I don't know what it is. I think the clock's going to hit midnight for the proverbial run.
It's Bruce Pearl is what you got, baby.
That's true.
There's so many ways to go about this. Any team in this is definitely going to be something to watch. Everybody's playing at such a high level. This makes it fun to watch March Madness, and that's why we all dig into it. So we gave you our picks, but we want to hear yours. So who you got taking home the chip this year in March Madness? Hit us up on that hashtag ODPH. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Hey, this is Vince the Common Man Citoy, local MMA fighter, telling you to keep on listening to the ODPH, the 607's up-and-coming newest podcast. We knew right where we'd be, floating on the airwaves, you see. It's a heartbreak, soul-shake radio attack, taking 4 steps forward and no steps back. We knew right where we'd be.
Coming back for the second segment on this sports edition of the ODPH podcast, and we're talking all the basketball action going on last weekend, and it's coming up this weekend too, Saturday and Monday. But the UFC has been making some quiet moves in between. UFC Philadelphia was this past weekend. The main event, Justin Gaethje versus Edwin Barboza. Pat, what was the reaction on this one?
My God, that knockout.
Absolutely. Gaethje pulled out that crazy knockout over Edwin Barboza. Didn't see it coming. He was definitely eating a bunch of leg kicks, and it was just wild to see. So now he's propelled himself up the lightweight ranks, and where does he go from here? In my opinion, I got him going against Pettis.
Yeah, sure.
Him and Showtime Pettis, and definitely in a Rock'em Sock'em robot style. I think that is going to get absolutely wild and crazy. Coach, you have any feelings where Gaethje's going after this?
I think Pettis, coming off of a victory too, makes sense. Get the two of them in the octagon together.
Yeah, with their striking, especially Gaethje, since he's been in the UFC, he definitely will stay in the pocket. He definitely throws hands. You know what you're getting out of him. And Barboza, was nailing with leg kicks. But then when Gaethje just planted that one out right on the chin, I mean, it was lights out. I mean, there's nothing you can say about it. I know there were questions about, was there an eye poke that held it up? I don't know, because Gaethje's just got those hands, and then, when he puts him on you, he puts you to sleep. So, taking a look at the lightweight rankings.
It's like Khabib is, of course, the champion. Tony Ferguson is the number one contender, followed by Conor McGregor, who, to this point, as of this recording, is still retired.
Asterix, yeah.
We haven't heard anything updating his status. Third is Dustin Poirier, and then at 4 you've got Al Iaquinta, and then you've got at 5 the aforementioned Justin Gaethje.
Yeah, this one, I mean, like I say, where he goes from here is going to be interesting. I mean, most of the top half of that division has already been booked for fights. We know Cerrone versus Iaquinta is coming up too. So where he goes with this, I mean, Pettis does make a lot of sense. I don't see him dropping any weight classes to drop down any lower to 145. And Gaethje, like I said, will put on a show. He did call out Khabib, which every fighter does, but I don't think that would be a good matchup for him in any way, shape, or form. That's my opinion, because I have never seen Gaethje work his ground game. I'm not saying he doesn't have one. I'm just saying personally I've never seen it. And frankly, Khabib has arguably the best ground game right now in all of MMA, because just take a look at how he takes fighters down and doesn't let them get back up. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens after that. But that was not the only big news since we last recorded.
Holy crap, no, it's not.
The matches for UFC 239 were announced.
STACKED in all caps.
Yes. So, Pat, do you want to break that down for us a little bit?
Holy crap. This card, of course, taking place July 6th from the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas, Nevada, UFC 239. Your title fight is John Jones, light heavyweight champion, versus Thiago Santos. Your co-main event is UFC Women's Bantamweight champion Amanda Nunes versus Holly Holm. Also in this fight, you have a heavyweight matchup between Francis Ngannou and Junior Dos Santos. You have a welterweight matchup between Jorge Masvidal versus Ben Askren. And then at light heavyweight, you have a match between Jan Blachowicz and Luke Rockhold. And those are just the announced bouts at the time of recording.
Coach, what is your feeling on this card here and that?
I mean, this is a holiday weekend card, that's for sure.
Yes.
I mean, they are obviously realizing that July 4th is 2 days before, and they are trying to get you to come watch this fight, this card, because this is absolutely stacked.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, this is International Fight Week, so they are making a statement with this one. I mean, you look at Jan Blachowicz versus Luke Rockhold, who I believe is stepping up to 205. That could be a very interesting fight. I think Rockhold stepping up makes a lot of sense at this state. I don't see him at 185 anymore, and I think he's kind of done his par for the course in that division, in my opinion. So to see him step up there, that's going to be an interesting one. Then you take a look at Francis Ngannou versus Junior Dos Santos. It's going to be hands all day on that one.
Don't blink. Don't go to use the restroom. Don't go to get food. Don't leave.
Yeah, that one is just going to be absolutely wild to see, because Ngannou can put anybody to sleep with his hands. Dos Anjos is arguably the best boxer in that heavyweight division. So somebody's going to get knocked out. Or
I was going to say, to quote the movie Friday, somebody's going to get knocked out. Yeah,
somebody is definitely going to get knocked out. I don't know who is in that one. I mean, that one, like I said, you're not going to see a lot of ground game. You're not going to see a lot of, I would say rest holds, but that's because we've been talking about wrestling too behind the scenes here. But you're going to see just a lot of straight strikings, a lot of handwork going on. Early prediction, I'm going to take Junior Dos Anjos, but it is early. This is way too early. We'll analyze it later when we get down the card as we get closer to July. And then taking a look at the third fight on the card, Askren versus Masvidal. Now, this one we were kind of predicting was going to happen. Ben Askren has been definitely making some waves in the UFC 170-pound division since his arrival. And this fight makes a lot of sense. This one, Masvidal looked amazing his last fight against Darren Till. Askren survived Robbie Lawler, and I emphasize survived.
Yeah.
Because that one, dare say it was like a pile driver he took.
Oh, God.
Straight on his head. And then he weathered the storm, and then you could argue about was it an early stoppage or not. Anyway, this fight is going to be a good one for both. For Masvidal, this is where if he wins this one, I would say you arguably put him in a number one contender match.
Yeah, easily.
You could argue this. For Askren, if he wins this, you have to. I mean, this one is going to be a number one contender match maker, because the winner, I think, has to move on to the number one contendership. Just looking at their pedigree and track record, because Masvidal has been on a tear lately, And with his last fight, and I know that there's some talk that maybe he was going to be doing, a fight against Leon Edwards. I don't see that one happening. I think he's worried about, or more focused rather, not worried, definitely not worried about getting a title shot. So I think it's onward and upward for him. And for Askren, Tyrone Woodley is no longer champion, so this is where you want to go for this. And then looking at the co-main event, Nunes versus Holm, this one is going to be another great striking fest.
Mm-hmm.
You have the official champ of the women's division in Amanda Nunes fighting former champion Holly Holm.
Yep.
This one is going to have a lot of heavy hands getting thrown too. And this one's going to be really fun to watch.
Yeah, another one. Don't sleep on it.
Right, because Nunes coming off that huge knockout against Cyborg, which, still is just sending shockwaves through all of the MMA community. And then Holly Holm, who, has shown her skills against Ronda Rousey.
She's no slouch.
She's no slouch either. So this one definitely is going to be one to catch and watch. And, where they go from here, who knows? And then you get to the main event. Coach, you have any early feelings on this one?
This is the fight that we had talked about that would probably happen. I like John still. Santos obviously is a big boy. I don't necessarily know that his reach is going to really be able to affect John. Just the fact that John outreaches pretty much everybody.
We'll say he does have a 76 inch reach. Does Santos?
Yeah, and John obviously is 84.5. So I still lean John just from the fact that I think he right now is in the prime of his career, and he's got this spark in his eye right now that is lending him just to dominate fights. So I'm going to go John again.
No, yeah, I'm going with John too. Until I see something, like I saw with the first fight against Alexander Gustafsson, there's nobody really in the division really saying, yeah, this is the person that's going to beat John Jones. So until that person shows up, whoever they may be, it's John's division to run through.
Well, I think the panel knows who that next guy is going to be, and that's Johnny Walker, panel favorite of ours. But in all kidding aside, now this one is going to be an interesting fight. Santos has definitely worked his way up the ranks, so I don't struggle with him getting the title shot. And then I do like John in this one too. John is just on a different level. So unless Santos can really throw something at him that throws him off key, this one should be, I don't want to say an easy fight for John, but I think he's definitely going to win this one outright.
Well, it's just like we've been talking about when we talk about the light heavyweight division that, really anybody that you put in this fight is just a placeholder, right now until somebody can come up the division that really strikes you. And obviously Santos has won and earned, the title fight, but it's not necessarily the fight that everybody wants to see. And it's just John's on another level right now, man. It's scary, the dominance that he's doing right now.
And I know he was teasing the fight against Stipe Miocic. I would have loved to have seen that.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Maybe that can come down the road because I think he's just going to get to a point he's going to clean out that division, and then he has to go up.
He really has cleaned out the division.
Yeah, there's a couple contenders there. Like I said, Reyes is there, Johnny Walker's there. But are they ready for that fight yet? I don't know. And
right.
Like I said, the only fight that makes sense to me, and I know it's not going to happen, it's him versus Ryan Bader. I'm still hoping. I'm still hoping for my cross promotion fight. But either way, you look at this card from top to bottom, and like we said, we've talked about it. Just a little teaser. We're going to go full detail when we get closer to the fight. This one has to be one of the most stacked fights in recent memory. And what I'm really applauding too is the UFC is really making it seems like, at least to me, a more emphasis on the pay-per-view fights being more special and more stacked and being more filled out.
Well, yeah, I think in a day and age with, like we spoke about, 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago or last week actually, with the announcement that ESPN was going to be the exclusive pay-per-view provider, for the international fights and, everything, and probably the trend towards changing into, maybe even the UFC launching into a similar style to the WWE network. They have to, they have to make your purchase of this pay-per-view feel special, because at the end of the day, you're spending $9.99 for the WWE network where you're getting, these quote-unquote pay-per-views for $9.99 versus the $65.99 that you got to spend on a UFC fight in HD. So, they have to make it special.
Mm-hmm. And I agree. That's what you really need to do. And you can't have it just, not have that big fight feel. And I know, no pun intended there. It's just when you talk pay-per-views, I mean, just from the history of just, combat sports, whenever it was like on pay-per-view, it was like, this is the big deal, the big show. And I think now you're seeing more stacked cards on it.
Yeah.
With just, the top level. Not saying that anybody that's, been on a card before hasn't been top level. I mean, if you make it in the UFC, you are at a top level of fighting.
Yeah, but before, I know it felt like they would just put like a Conor McGregor on a fight with, blank fighter, and then, but you were buying the pay-per-view because it was Conor McGregor, versus whoever. And, before they would do it with John, too, they would be able to leverage the fact that John Jones was the main fight, or Conor McGregor, for you to purchase the whole pay-per-view because they knew you would want to watch the main event. But now it's like, you look at this card, it's like every single fight is like, I want to see that fight. I want to see that one too, so it's building up to a show that you want to see.
Yeah, and I think they're taking the steps in the right direction. UFC 239 is definitely a prime example of that. And, I mean, obviously we're going to be talking about that as we progress onward to July. But definitely hit us up on your early predictions. Who you think's going to be winning those fights? Hit us up on that hashtag ODPH. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Hi, this is Mike C. from I Am Horror. You're listening to the ODPH, the most killer podcast on the planet.
Coming back for the final segment on this sports edition of the Ocho Duro Parlay Hour, hashtag ODPH podcast, and let's kick off that local minute, shall we, Pad?
Sure. Local minute. Of course, we're talking Binghamton Devils. Looking at their results the past week, they went to the Rockets and played them on Wednesday the 27th, where they won 5-1. Friday, they returned home after a long extended period away from home and played the Springfield Thunderbirds, where they won in a 4-3 victory. And then Saturday night, they stayed at home and played the Americans, where they lost by a final score of 6-4. Looking ahead to this week's games, Friday, April 5th, they travel to Wilkes-Barre to play the Penguins, game time 7:05. And then Saturday, April 6th, they return home to play the Toronto Marlies, game time 7:05. And then Sunday, April 7th at 3 o'clock, they travel up to Hartford to play the Wolfpack, game time 3 o'clock. More information, BinghamtonDevils.com. And, of course, Binghamton Rumble Ponies kick off their season this week. They come home next week. More information, BingRP.com. BingRP.com.
Yeah, no, definitely. The Devil season is winding down. The NHL playoffs are going to be starting very, very soon. So the Rangers are not in it, so we'll worry about that next season. But there's going to be a lot of stuff going on with that. Might have to hit up parlay points for a little playoff predictions, shall we say. And obviously with the Rumble Ponies coming back into town, we're definitely excited to start talking some baseball happening in the local scene too. I mean, Syracuse Mets are going to be coming back too. It's going to be a great time for some baseball. And the Major League Baseball season has been going on lately. I mean, definitely, has there anything been sticking out lately about the first week? I mean, I know it's like way too early predictions and all that jazz.
Well, I mean, for me, it's got to be Christian Yelich of the Milwaukee Brewers making his case very, 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 very early for another NL MVP, but absolutely just hitting the cover off the baseball. I mean, we're less than 10 games into the season. I want to say 5 or 6 games into the season. He's already got 4 home runs and 8 RBIs and has an OPS of 1.801. Like, what?
Yeah, he's playing lights out baseball right now. I mean, like we said, this is way too early predictions for MVP. But Yelich is playing so well right now. I mean, Milwaukee has got to be so happy with him. And then to flip side, too, looking at how the Yankees have kind of started out, it's been a little dicey.
It's
rough, but it's early.
It's early.
I know they struggle against Baltimore a little bit, and it's to be expected. Like I say, every time you face a division foe, it's always something.
Well, and Susan Waldman on the Yankees radio broadcast brought up an interesting point when I was listening to them play the Detroit Tigers the other night. You have these players play and practice and warm up and get really going in sunny 80-degree weather for, a month and a half, however long it is, only to turn around and come and play games in 40-degree weather. What does that do to the human body? I wonder if that doesn't play a part in it.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely could. So it's going to be interesting to watch. I mean, obviously, the Yankees are typically known to start slow in April, and then they really start kicking into gear. Same thing with Boston, too.
Yeah.
I know Boston's kind of having their woes.
I'll say they're taking some lumps.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Pat, that's a really good point. I never thought of it that way.
Yeah, neither had I until she brought it up.
Yeah, like it's like 90 degrees, sunny, beautiful, and then you come to New York, and then you got hit with snow.
Like I know specifically the game the other day where the Yankees were playing, like Aaron Judge was out in right field looking like he was playing October baseball. Like he had the whole winter cap on and the sleeves were on and the whole nine. I'm like, this man looks like he's playing October baseball, not start of the season.
Yeah, I mean, and they always talk about how like football teams, when they go from the dome to outdoors and they got playing the elements, how difficult that can be, especially for like a team like LA to come out to New York to play in the winter months. Yeah, man, that absolutely messes with you mentally and physically, for sure.
I mean, that might have been something about Syndergaard was, obviously was kind of vocal about, traveling up to upstate before coming back down.
But you know what? Maybe it was best for him.
Yeah, because obviously you see what happens and,
Let's say, but like you say, Yankees definitely taking some lumps. I think they've got like a major league best, and this is not a record you want. 9 players on the injured list, and of course there's a whole situation with Miguel Andujar, who has a small labrum tear. Right now it's kind of conservative, see where they go, but they're not ruling out season-ending surgery. So a lot of people, Yankees fans, why do they have so many infielders and field players at the start of the season? Well, this is why.
Exactly. Injuries happen, and obviously to your infielders, you definitely need to have a solid depth at that position, no matter what position it is going to be. So for the Yanks, obviously, when they carry so many, that's why. It makes perfect sense. And then you take a look at with the new players in their new spots. Bryce Harper in Philly is
he's hitting bombs.
He has made an impression.
More than way than one. Congratulations to him and his wife.
This is
expecting
true.
their first child.
Yeah, and Philly has definitely embraced him. He's embraced it too. Like you can see, he's definitely.
I think it's a lot of fun. I mean, obviously, It's Always Sunny crew. Pat and I, big fans of the show. I've really embraced the superstar. In Bryce Harper. And I think it's a lot of fun. I can't wait for this coming season. I hope they do something with him.
I'll say I appreciate the majestic home runs he's hit the last week or so, the 460 plus skyscrapers. But I do appreciate the shirt he wore for opening day, where it was the Philly Fanatic and then Gritty from the Philadelphia Flyers on a shirt in the pose of Sam Jackson and in Pulp Fiction, where they're just standing there looking down. I love that shirt. Everything about it. It's definitely interesting to see how it goes from here, because from my understanding, he's hit these 2 home runs in like 2 games, and he was not using his own bat. You know how superstitious baseball players can be. Something tells me that player may be forking over their bat for Bryce Harper to use for quite a while.
Yeah, definitely a lot of early headlines kicking off the baseball season. And speaking of baseball, let's go round those bases, shall we, Pad? What you got?
Well, I got some rather interesting news that came out today as we record. According to Mike Florio of ProFootballTalk.com, the AAF will suspend football operations. Now, this is from the article on their site. Quote, per a source with knowledge of the situation, the Alliance of American Football will be suspending all football operations within the next few hours. The league won't be folding yet, but it seems to be moving in that direction. The move comes in the aftermath of ominous comments from Tom Dundon, who became the majority owner of the AAF several weeks ago. Dundon committed $250 million in funding to the league, but he had the ability to pull funding, and he obviously has. Last night, a source told Pro Football Talk that the AAF needed roughly $20 million to get to the end of its first season. Instead, the season will end with 2 weeks left in the regular season and with a 4-team postseason that never comes to fruition, close quote. So definitely a rather interesting ending to the season, I guess, with as much fanfare and kind of hype that went into it as, debuting the week after the Super Bowl and the numbers and the ratings and where would this go, and kind of going out with a fizzle.
Yeah, this one, it's interesting. And obviously there is so much hype behind the league. And doing football going into spring is tough, because you almost wonder about, is it too much oversaturation? Is it, is the game, does it need the break for fans? Obviously, this league kind of had some mixed results, and I think mixed reactions. Trent Richardson, I think, had the best experience of all of this. He had a career resurgence. Yeah. So to see it fold as it's standing right now, I mean, it's a tough thing to do. You don't want to see anybody lose, any jobs and such. So this is kind of very tough to see.
Yeah, it's just crazy to me that there isn't, a market for a secondary football league that's not trying to compete with the NFL. And I mean, obviously the AAF is not trying to do that. And when you talk about, minor league sports and, the abundance of baseball that there is, from penal league all the way up till, major leagues. I mean, there is at least 50 to 60 different organizations that are operating on some sort of level, in that sport. And then you talk about, the ECHL and the AHL, and then the NBA has now been able to finally, get a minor league organization, and put their foot on that. And the ABA and the ability that they have to draw fans. It's like, how can football, the number one sport in all of America, not get some sort of secondary level sport?
Well, I think because
or company.
I think because you look at it, yes, NFL folks were involved in the operation of this league, the Bill Polians and what have you. But I think when it comes down to it, you look at the minor league system of baseball, AAA, single A, double A. Major League Baseball is paying for that. You look at the NBA's development league or minor leagues, whatever you want to call it. The NBA is paying for that. The NHL is paying for their minor leagues. When you look at that, the NFL, by and large, other than a couple of teams saying, yeah, we're going to be affiliated with this team, the NFL, to my knowledge, and I could be wrong, hit us up on the hashtag if I'm wrong, to my knowledge, the NFL was never saying, hey, we'll throw you a couple $1 million, because if that were the case, they wouldn't be turning around and saying, hey, we need $20 million to keep going.
No, I'm pretty sure the NFL said that they weren't going to have anything to do with it. And
I think if the NFL...
It's a loose affiliation, if anything.
Yeah.
I think if the NFL would have been affiliated with it from the get-go at the start and thrown some money into it, not a lot of money, but enough money to just kind of, hey, we'll throw you some money and we'll see where this goes. If this goes in our favor and it works out for us, we'll throw you more money. But for now, here's a loose check.
Well, and I mean, to speak to this, and Ken, I obviously switching topics on what I was going to talk about, but this kind of brought up into something. Major League Lacrosse actually now just announced that they're going to fold 3 of their franchises. They did it the opposite way that the AAF did it, which was respectful and the right way to do it, just announcing, we just don't have the funds in order to operate it. The Major League Lacrosse, on the flip side, held a collegiate draft, had players getting ready to report for training camp, and then in the last hour decided to drop 3 teams.
Oh,
wait, what?
So for everybody that might follow it, Major League Lacrosse announced 2 days ago, on April Fool's Day, mind you, that they were going to fold 3 franchises, one being the Charlotte Hounds is going to return for operations in 2021, so 2 years from now. But all these players, we're getting ready for to report training camp, and we're going to get ready for operations and season operational. They had season tickets on sale and players are, people already purchased them and everything. Now to decide on April 1st as the league year starting to commence here to fold and drop 3 teams. So instead of like the American Alliance of Football, where they, operationally just, we cannot afford to do it, we're going to make this announcement public. They did it in closed doors meetings that they then announced, that they're going to fold 3 franchises.
That's shady.
That's not a good look. That's very not a good look if that's what happened.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of it has to do with, just the fact that from an operational standpoint, what they're trying to do, and this is what they're trying to do to save face, is they're trying to go to single ownership. Right now they had one owner who owned 3 franchises or 4 franchises. Ironically, 3 of the 4 were the ones that folded. Just nobody was able to step up and get, ownership in time to save the franchises. But, my heart goes for not just necessarily the players who, all the pretty much 90% of the MLL players had side jobs or normal jobs that were playing Major League Lacrosse as a side gig. But for the people in the organizational standpoint that kind of lended this job as a summer job, that they kind of relied on that income, that's the people that I feel bad for in all of this. I mean, fans are going to get reimbursed their season ticket purchases. Everybody, they already announced that. I feel for the people in the organizational standpoint that really relied on this job as an additional income that, it got taken from them as they were getting prepared to go to work.
Yeah, this is just tough all around. I mean, obviously, you take a look at the AAF situation and with lacrosse here, this is just a tough situation. Like I said, I hate seeing anybody lose jobs. And obviously, it's a tough thing for a league to keep going. And, just how if that's what happened, that's just messy.
Yeah, it's real. It's real. And, I mean, now, so obviously the Premier League is getting ready to launch with, what Paul Rabel and his brother Michael Rabel were able to do with landing NBC broadcast rights. Now you look at, and what they did that maybe would have helped the AAFF was they went on a tour-based model. So instead of, and this is what I think the XFL has said that they're going to do. So, I mean, when you talk about, now the AAF folding, Vince McMahon's got a league that's coming out next year.
Yeah, I'd be walking very trepidatiously with this one.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure he announced that it's going to be tour-based as well. So, I mean, maybe that is the way to get your foot implemented in this instead of trying to be a city-based thing. Maybe the tour-base is the best way to kind of intro your league to help it expand. And that's what the PLL is doing, where there is an ownership of the teams, but the league owns the teams. So
it's an interesting concept. I mean, if this is going to be the next wave of, leagues and federations and such, then maybe it's the avenue to go. But just to see, what happened with the AAF and Major League Lacrosse there.
Yeah, it's terrible. I mean, you feel for these people,
Absolutely. So my run in the base, Coach, you're going to kind of team up with me on this one.
I'll let you take this one.
Because LeBron is shutting down for the year.
Crazy.
Start the prep for Space Jam 2.
Yeah, I heard that he's putting a basketball court on set, so he's going to be staying in shape during the filming, which, I mean, that makes sense because Michael Jordan did the same thing during the original.
Right, but in a little bit of different circumstances because MJ was going for the three-peat in that three-peat that he ran.
Yep.
LeBron's coming from shutting down for the season and not making the playoffs.
I'm saying, if I saw right, playing the fewest games he's ever played in his professional career.
Yeah. It's interesting to see as a spectator because we're so used to seeing LeBron in the finals and in the playoffs, and I mean, just to the greatness of his career. We're used to seeing him. So to see him shut down early, I'm not saying Father Time is catching up with him. I don't want that coming out like that. But I think it's very telling that just the demands of this season, I think, have finally taken its toll on him.
Yeah, I mean, anytime that you have a guy who's in his 30s and has played so many games, being that he's 34, now been in the NBA since he was 19 or 18, so that's almost 20 years in the NBA.
Yeah.
I mean, he's close. The mileage starts to add up, and anytime that you got somebody with a groin injury, you have to, especially at that age, pull them back a little bit away from themselves. I'm sure LeBron probably at some point during that injury and that time that he missed, I think he missed something like 15 to 20 games.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, during that stretch, he probably wanted to get back out there, especially because the team was starting to slide. But at the same time, shutting down with 6 games left to go when the Lakers are, it's Kyle Kuzma.
Yeah, it's a young team that just wasn't ready to make that run yet. And let's just be honest, that's what it is. So now when he's shutting down, he's now starting his off season. Obviously, the playoffs are going to be starting very soon for the NBA. I mean, there's even a chance the Denver Nuggets might get a shot at the number 1 seed.
Yeah, which is tremendous because that is a team.
Yeah.
That is not a superstar. That is a solid, solidified 5 that need each other.
Yeah, it's really interesting to see how they have emerged because Pat and I were talking about on a past episode that we were even struggling to name anybody on the Nuggets, but I mean, here they are and making
Paul Millsap, baby.
Yeah, I mean, they're just making such a run that you don't hear about them. We always hear about Golden State and the Lakers, and you don't hear about Denver's so flying under the radar, even though if you're in the league, they're not.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's going
They got a big matchup tonight with Golden State, too.
Yeah, huge matchup. I mean, I think this is the number 1 seed on the line.
Yeah.
I think Golden State's going to pull this one off as a recording, but I could be wrong. Hit us up on that hashtag ODPH about this.
Yeah, it's just, but I mean, back to LeBron, though, it's just, it's really wild to see the trajectory of where this season went because everybody thought they could at least slide into a 7-8 seed. And I mean, obviously, we talked on previous podcasts that they put him around ball handlers instead of shooters. Brandon Ingram really didn't have the year that they were hoping for. Kyle Kuzma, ups and downs. Lonzo obviously has some off-court issues going on right now, so, who knows how long that exactly was going on for. Could have been a distraction there that kind of helped or prevented his growth, in his second year. So it's going to be a very, very interesting offseason for the Lakers because they have money.
Yeah. And this is where it's going to get so interesting in this offseason. I mean, who's coming to New York with Zion? This is going to be the question. I'm still believing that's happening, folks. You can't tell me otherwise. But this is where it is going to get interesting. And for the Lakers, we now see who wants to go out into the media show that is the Lakers currently right now, and just with all the drama that happened this offseason, or this current season. So this offseason is going to be so telling to watch.
Yeah, I mean, who wants to come play with a 35-year-old LeBron? Obviously, this season was very, very turbulent with him in Los Angeles, from a chemistry standpoint of teammates. We obviously all watched that play out,
Yeah.
So Will Kawhi want to go out there? Will KD want to go out there? Will Klay Thompson? These free agents that are coming up here, it's a big class. And, the Lakers have a young core and a first-round pick that they could potentially move. So there's a lot of options that LA can do. It's really troubling if I was a free agent seeing LeBron get shut down for the last 6 games and Magic Johnson necessarily hasn't been able to put a footprint outside of that because it's not like Magic recruited LeBron. LeBron recruited LeBron.
Yeah. This is where it's going to get dicey, so we'll have to wait and see. But him shutting down is a very telling sign, and how that reflects in the offseason is anybody's guess.
Yeah.
So to cap off the show, we did do a wrestling recap if you listen to the ODPH Podcast Network. So tying in with this, there's a little fun story going on with sports to tie into the wrestling this week.
Okay.
In 1995, as we are recording, this is the day, as we were recording on the 2nd, LT, New York Giants legendary linebacker, defeated Bam Bam Bigelow at WrestleMania 11.
R.I.P.
Oh.
Yes, rest in peace to Mr. Bigelow. So that being said, let me ask the panel quick. What is your favorite sports moment crossing into wrestling or wrestling crossing into sports?
Oh, God.
Say for me, it's probably got to be when Mike Tyson showed up and just kind of the whole aura with that whole thing. And you think back to the Jim Ross, Tyson.
Yeah, I have to agree. Like, for me, at least, with Tyson coming over to the WWE, that was wild to see. And, I memean, even you can kind of say with Brock Lesnar crossing over to the UFC, that first fight.
Yeah. I kind of lend towards, being so young and so infatuated with wrestling at the time, I kind of, and being a big NBA guy that I am, that Karl Malone, Dennis Rodman run that they had in WCW with Diamond Dallas Page and Hulk Hogan, to see them in the ring and actually square off, especially after the championship series where things got really testy between the two of them. I still remember that kind of standing out as something that was so wild to see. And then, the Brock Lesnar. But for me, it's actually not Brock going to the UFC, but it's actually Brock coming back from the UFC that night that he returned after Mania and, beat up John Cena. Was wild because I just remember that crowd just being so just like, one more, ready for him to F5 him one more time. So, I think I would be Brock returning for the first time.
There's so many memories going on. WrestleMania is this Sunday on the WWE Network, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard start time. It's going to be a long show. We had George Gatton on, our favorite independent wrestler. He's going to be having a busy WrestleMania week on the indie circuit, so you can follow him on Twitter. We'll have that post up on our social media as well. And definitely remember to check out our Wrestling Recap podcast. It's a great episode, so if you're into pro wrestling, definitely check it out. But that's all we got for this week. So for your coach, my coach, the coach, Coach Duffy.
Good night and good luck.
For Padawan J.
Thank you.
I'm your host, Ken M. Thank you, as always, for listening to the Ocho Duro Parlay Hour #ODPH podcast. See you next time.